We got some updates to an old story. So, to pull back the old "don't name your kids Khaleesi" bit.
From every year since 1992.
Um, a child of 6 years old named Khaleesi was unable to be issued a passport because uh, the passport authority said Warner Brothers has to give permission as it owns the trademark to the name.
Now, to be fair to this
Yes.
stupid family,
Yes.
they are like, Khaleesi's on her birth certificate. Why the hell would the passport
To
like,
which
they have a problem?
to which the passport authority then apologized for the error, but
It screwed up their trip. They couldn't go.
they were supposed to go on holiday together, and then they were turned they were turned down, and the kid couldn't go to Disney because they literally said no. Warner Brothers has to approve the usage of your child's name. Good job.
So
They straightened it out, but they couldn't go on their trip. And, I mean, it turns out WB does not have to allow the child to exist. So, that's good. Yes, they did eventually get their license for that name. They did. But yeah, I just think we continue to reiterate that if you're gonna
Khaleesi, it's pronounced soccer.
if you're gonna go with a really nerdy reference name of some kind, and you've completely and you've tricked your partner into something, just give your kid the out so that there's a normal name they can use inside of that, maybe for short or something. Give them a chance. Don't give them no chance whatsoever.
Really, so
I say this delicately because there are extremely high odds that people listening to this are in the category of people who have or are considering using game or movie or media reference names for their kids. So I know, and we might already be past that point. So I say this with the thickest kid gloves ever. Just give the child an out in the form of a nickname of some kind, an option select, if you would.
So when Paige and I were trying to think up names for the boy, Paige in particular was going through heaven and high earth, all sorts of databases, but she found the Reddit for name nerds, which is the baby naming subreddit.
Yes.
And discovered through that what might have been the greatest "Am I the Asshole" short story ever posted.
Oh, are we talking about young baby Karen?
We are talking fucking goddamn it. We are talking about baby Karen.
It's famous. It's a famous story. It's a famous subreddit story at this point.
It is, for anyone who doesn't know, you should go look it up. But it is a sister trying to convince her sister not to name her new baby Karen, and that it will be a problem, and the year by year breakdown of it becoming a massive, massive problem.
I mean, your bullet point takeaways essentially are that the family is so offline and they have no idea what has happened to the name, and they just are insistent. And this is before the kid's born. And the sister is really trying to delicately explain to them that this is a name that doesn't mean the same thing anymore.
It's terrible.
It's going to be a rough life for the kid. Just don't commit to this. And they're like, not just saying no, but aggressively being like, fuck you, sister.
Why are you trying to fuck up our baby's name? Why are you saying all these horrible things?
Why can't you just be cool and not just be this huge bitch, right? And the mother and the sister and the family are just aggressively shutting it down. And then, of course, you fast forward and it's like they start to get the inklings as people are kind of smirking and laughing and
people at the kids' daycare,
right?
Are cracking
wise and they're
the baby.
And they're like, oh, something's going wrong, right? And then I think it's 2 or 3 years past to the point where the kid is getting into that exactly, they're fully in the daycare, and it is come down heavy, and like the kids being almost like teased, and like it's just coming up constantly.
So she's going by a nickname at the daycare, right? But the kicker, the bullet, is when they went on a trip, and the guy at the airport checking the kid's passport literally turns to the other guy in the booth and goes, "Get a load of this." And the second guy looks at it and goes, "Oh, poor kid."
Right? There's an actual, like, isn't there an actual joke on fucking Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt where it's like, who names a baby Karen? Right? It's insane. It's an insane. So anyway, they, you know, and like we've talked about how as well the baby name registrar, it's like it went to 0 in Canada last year, right? So the family, the mom and the grandmother and the mother now come back to the OP and the sister and go, "Why didn't you tell us how bad this was?" And she's like, "I fucking told you. I tried really hard, and you
almost got iced out from the whole family.
And you all shit on me for trying to tell you. I fucking tried to tell you." And they're like, "Yeah, well, you should have tried harder." Like, oh my God. Like, it's that. That's the part where I'm like, I'm nuclear. I'm wild.
So me and Paige, we were driving somewhere. This was back before the little guy was born. And we were talking about this for hours because we couldn't get enough of it. And we were like sitting around going like, is there a boy's name that is as tainted as baby Karen's? And the only thing we could come up with was Adolf. Yeah.
But yes, this is clear. This is true. 100%. Chad is also kind of like fucked in this current way. Tyrone is not doing too well, you know. But
Tyrone.
But there is a whole category for the other things, like the Aidens, Jadens, Bradens, Zadens, Cadens, and so on. And so you have your baby name like subreddit, right, that you mentioned. There's another subreddit called Tragedy. And I don't know if you're familiar with this one, but that's let me you gotta
I'm gonna type something to you now.
Okay, because you have to spell this one correctly, right? This is TRAGIDEI. Tragedy is a subreddit dedicated to people going, "Oh dear God. Oh dear God, it's the name and the spelling." That's fucking crazy, by the way. That's fucking nuts. That is some wow. That sucks. That sucks to hear. But yes, people with no awareness naming their kids these horrible things, and then the alternate spellings and such, and it's a discussion about all of that, and it's great. It's fucking wonderful because it's people that are just like hyper aware, being essentially the sister in that story, you know, encountering in the wild or talking to people they know about their decisions to be creative with the naming of just awful things that are going to haunt the kids forever.
I'm glad that white people have decided to democratize the alienating experience for their children of creating names that no one will ever be able to pronounce on the first try. Like, way to like really just like spread that horrible feeling around.
Man, it's like you can't. It's a back and forth. You don't know what you and your partner are gonna have to come up with and agree on and so on. And you know, you're probably gonna. Well, anyway, there's a lot to consider, right? But just whatever it is, just give the kid an out from your own bullshit and your partner's bullshit. Like,
I think
whatever you try to impose If the child wants nothing to do with any of that, give them the opportunity to abbreviate or use a version of it that completely cuts the tumor of your bullshit out, because they might hate it.
One of the funniest parts of going through names with the wife was we went through, because we didn't know right away if boy or girl, so we're going through girl names, and I think Paige fired off maybe 2,000 girl names at me, and I think I might have shot down 1,900 of them with the same phrase, which is like, that sounds like a hooker's name. just like literally conversations lasting over an hour where that is the only thing I have to say the whole time, which would always lead to her going, "What the fuck? You can't know. It can't be.
Is it a car? Is it a watch? Is it an object? Is it a physical luxury object? And then is it a concept?"
Then you run into the absolute like worst but most fun part of naming your child is, what about this name? I really like that name. Well, I knew a guy with that name, and that guy's an asshole. Yeah. And then you run down that list and discover there are like 100 people living in your head as like, I knew a guy with that name, and they're an asshole, and they're the only person you ever knew that had that name.
And so it's tainted forever. Yep, even if it's a nice one, Yeah, and then there are how there are like, I forgot what the name of it is, but it's like theories about like certain people look a certain way, and thus they kind of like become that energy of the person they look like. There's a whole name for that or whatever, but it's also a thing with names too, where it's like if you have a name that will
it changes your personality to some degree.
Exactly, right. To which I think I've said it before, but it's all like, we all know a Chastity.
Yep. Anyone named after a virtue will become the opposite of that virtue.
We all know what's up. Yeah. So, anyway, just, if you're going Game of Thrones,
don't
wait for the show to end. Wait for the media to end if you're going with the media, but yeah.
Somebody in the chat, don't forget Jessica. Jessicas are so cursed.
I mean, but Jessica was the most popular name circa 94, yep. I think it was.
Every single one of them I've ever met was Psycho. 100%.
And I think right after that was Rachel because of Friends, and then immediately after that,
so I think the fun thing is like we make fun of Khaleesi, but like it's always been like
it's always media. It's always media. Yeah.
Fantasy or sci-fi media was a little newer to be super mainstream. Yeah. So like it kind of flew under the radar.
It went to Rachel because of Friends, and immediately after that was Isabella because of Twilight.
Yeah.
So it won, and going back to the 60s, it's always been media, Anyways, look forward to baby millennia any time now. Oh God, yeah.
There's just,
I mean, we've gotten, I've heard from, we got an email some time ago about someone who worked in a classroom with a baby Sora and Riku, I mean,
oh man, that reminds me, this is a different Reddit thing, but it was somebody on Name Nerds getting like mad and asking if they had made the right decision because from one of their favorite TV shows, they decided to name their twin boys after these characters, only to discover much later in life that these characters are actually gay for each other. And then you're reading and you're like, please don't be Aziraphale and Crowley. And sure enough, it's like, you need to pay attention from Good Omens.
Okay.
You need to pay attention to the media you're consuming, because that shit was on the wall. It was not hard.
Like, you could almost get away with, like, oh, I like the sound of this one name, right? Oh, that's interesting. But if you're going both, it's like, no, there was no mistaking this. This is deliberate and true.